Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody in social media land, TV land, blogosphere. Welcome to Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. I'm Ray Amanat here in sunny Port Richey, Florida. And of course, my co host, Mr. Steve Reed, somewhere in northern Texas. Getting a little chilly and a little icy out there.
No, it's not chili. We have some really nice hot soup. We ate the chili a couple days ago.
Okay, that
So,
sounds great.
yeah, go ahead. Rub it in, Ray. It's going to be what, 82 degrees there in
Oh, I'll be
Florida?
either poolside or at the beach sometime this weekend. So
Yeah,
yes,
I'm happy
yes.
to hear you. I'm very happy to hear that. So, yeah, well, we have ice and snow and so forth. Everything is shut down.
So
So,
I got a question for you,
I have an
Steve. Do you
answer.
know what today is?
Today would be the first day of February.
Hump day. No, it's hump day.
Mike, 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 Mike.
All right, so I would like to, because I'm really excited to have our special guest today on a truly taboo topic
Yes.
with Mr. our pastor, Bruce Miller, with Christ Fellowship, talking about leading a church in a time of sexual questioning. He's the author of the new book recently released, Seven Big Questions Searching for God, Truth, and Purpose. Let's welcome Pastor. How are you doing? Welcome to Taboo.
Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be with you on the show. Ray and Steve, delighted to be here with you today.
Oh,
It's
we're
exciting
happy
to
to
have you.
have you.
Thanks.
Ray, Ray.
Wow. That was more than I expected.
Oh, mercy. It's going to be a very long show today, Bruce. I'm sorry to tell you that.
So,
Oh,
do you go by Pastor or
I just go by Bruce.
Okay,
Just
so
ordinary guy.
can you give our viewing and listening audience a little background about yourself and your ministry?
Yeah, sure. My wife Tamara and I have been married for almost 40 years, 40 years next summer, with 5 kids and 9 grandkids, which feels kind of crazy. And started the church here in McKinney, Texas, which is just north of Dallas, 26 years ago, almost 27 years ago. And it's a joy to serve as a pastor. I love to help people to find more peace and joy and fulfillment in their lives.
That is awesome.
well put. Succinct to the point. So Bruce, you stumbled on an issue that when Ray and I first started talking about doing this program, this podcast, we started making a list of all of the topics that people just don't want to talk about.
Right.
Thus, we came up with the name Taboo Talk. And so we've been going through this list. We had one program, gosh, it was probably 9 months ago, where we were talking about some of the LGBT issues, and it was about the time that the I want to say the University of Pennsylvania or NCAA had the swimming competitions, and there was a
Right.
guy that won the competition against all women, and so that was a pretty intense conversation that we had. But I started hearing some little things about you and some of the things that you were doing, and you're approaching the whole issue from a very different perspective. And that really piqued my interest. And Ray, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to our conversation today. And hopefully,
Absolutely.
it will shed some light, it will open some people's eyes, and maybe give people a little bit of a different perspective. At the same time, uh, we want people to comment and like and share and so forth. We want to have an adult conversation, okay?
Yes.
Uh, so no hate stuff, none of that condemnation, put down stuff. Let's have a conversation. So we're hoping that people will go ahead and share some of their information about what's going on. So how did you first get started in doing things in the area of the LGBT community?
Yeah, a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I realize, like with all of us, what a huge issue it is, not only in our country, but frankly, around the world. This is a topic that's global, and different countries, it's at different levels of a boiling point, but I don't think it's without controversy in any country in the world. And then there are people around me, close to me, extended family, people in our church, deeply wrestling with these issues. They are really close to the heart. And I said, we just got to research this. And the more I researched it, the more I realized there's just not enough out there to provide good, solid help for people. And then, in just a way I can't even explain, other than God put the LGBTQ community on my heart, as people who have sadly been mistreated by churches and religious people in the United States and around the world. And we've got to overcome that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, with me and my parents are immigrants from Iran, and if you look at the homosexual community in Iran right now, they're being stoned to death. They're being thrown
Right.
off of high-rise buildings. They're being executed. I'm sure it's like that in other parts of the
Right.
world or the Middle Eastern cultures, anyway.
You're right. You're right. It's sad. I mean, it's beyond sad. It's tragic.
Yeah.
one of the things that I think piques my interest is the fact that so many people sweep the issues under the carpet, but you're willing to come out, so to speak, and actually talk about it and confront the issue head on, and not continue to sweep things under the carpet. So why, number one, why don't we talk about it, and why do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think the issue is taboo. I mean, it is. There are political controversy around it, so it's become politicized. It's actually, sexuality is not really intrinsically political, but it is. Certainly in the United States, it's political. And then there are roots here of shame and guilt for people that run really deep in their families of origin or the religious communities they might be part of, that have treated. There are some religious people who called anyone who described themselves as homosexual in some ways decades ago as an abomination. No one really uses the word homosexual to describe themselves these days.
Yeah.
It's kind of a clinical old word that actually is itself a bit offensive. But the word abomination was used, and that is a harsh word. So I find that parents will come and meet with me and tell me that their child has come out to them, and they are so ashamed. They don't want anyone to know. They want to keep it a big secret. And they've come to tell me in private because they don't want anyone to know.
Yep.
And I'm like, boy, there's just so much shame around this topic that really doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, understand. Well, Bruce, we've got to take a short commercial break. We got to pay some bills. So, Ray, I'm going to take us over to Heroes in Action. Hold on.
Hi, welcome to Heroes in Action. I'm Ray Amanat, founder and creator of this training system. I originally made it so that everyone can train for free. We have programs for kids, for women, families, and businesses. I'm an author, speaker, and educator on everything that has to do with violence and bullying prevention education. If you'd like more information about who we are and what our programs are, please go to our website at heroesinaction.us, or give me a call if you have any questions at 727-314-2534. We hope to see you here to train.
Never get tired of seeing that record. Yes, only applause. Oh, right. I'm going to take your toy away from you.
No!
So, Ray, what prompted you to get started with this?
Well, I mean, I went from being the victim of severe bullying throughout elementary school through high school to I got into martial arts to not be a victim anymore. And ultimately, I wanted to teach people how to be heroes for themselves, hence the yeah, it's our actions that make us heroes, whether it's for ourselves or for others. So I go out of my way to train people to know what to verbally say and physically do to keep themselves and their loved ones safe so that they can be heroes and thrive in everyday life. Everything that we do as a nonprofit organization is based on charitable contributions or grants that we get in order to help us continue offering our services for free. We need your help in making a one time or recurring donation to our foundation. You can go to our website or just use this QR code and uh, at least 25 $5, whatever you can afford, helps us continue our programming on a local and national level.
Very cool. So we're going to go back and talk about the other taboo topic. So for actually before we shift back and bring Bruce back in, actually, and I'm going to bring Bruce back in. He needs to hear this. Uh, so when you were growing up, you were bullied because of your ethnicity.
It
Yeah.
wasn't just my ethnicity, but my first name is Ray. So, I was called Gay Ray all the time. Now I'm not gay, so it bothered me. But what if I was gay? That
Yep.
they're not accepting of me. So I kind of feel um, how people that are in the LGBTQ world are looked at and looked down upon because I was spit on, I was punched, kicked, pushed, and nobody really treated me like as a human. They treated me like a dog or worse. So no, it was not a fun thing.
It's
So
surprising to a lot of people to learn that the LGBTQ community is more persecuted than any other. So when you ask people who would be the most persecuted, we might say today Asian Americans are facing a lot of violence,
mhm.
Black people, Jewish people, sadly, historically around the world, Christians complain of being mistreated. But the group that is, from a statistical standpoint, objectively, the LGBTQ community is more likely to suffer verbal abuse, to be denied service, to be not given the ability to live in a certain place, and even physical violence at a higher level than any other group in the United States.
So, Pastor, why are you so concerned or passionate about this?
For me, ultimately, it goes back really to the mission of Christ. He came to bring love to all people. He came to bring life. He calls it abundant life, like a better life, a life at another plane for all people. And I find that in the United States, which is where I live, so I know the most about it. But as you mentioned, Iran and other countries, somehow LGBTQ people are excluded. They shouldn't be, but they've been left out. The Bible says that God so loved the whole world. That includes everybody.
Yeah.
And so I have just a heart for justice and a heart. I really identify, Ray, with your heart for people who are being bullied. And it's like, hey, we need to stand up for anybody who's being mistreated. I don't care what they look like, what their name is, what their ethnicity. And in our country, LGBTQ people, by and large, have been mistreated. And I feel like we have an obligation to stand up for them.
Yeah. Very true. When I was a little guy myself, I got bullied for two different reasons. Number one, I was a little guy. I was the third smallest kid in my class in fourth grade. And the crazy thing is, I moved from Kansas to Maryland in between my third and fourth grade. When I was in third grade, I was one of the taller kids. Over that summer, everybody else grew, or they fed people differently in Maryland. I don't know what it was, but I got bullied because of that. But I got bullied for another reason too. My dad was a minister,
Hmm.
and I got bullied because I was a PK.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was brutal at times. So I can relate. I can't relate as much today as I could from when I was 10 years old. But so all right, so here's another question for you. Why do you think churches are so split and so divided on the whole topic of dealing with this issue?
Yeah, I think there's cultural pressures that are going on politically, and it's not just this issue, but it's sort of a whole worldview or a whole approach. So there's a progressive ethic that moves to saying we need to be affirming, and it's a you do you, doesn't matter what people do or say, do whatever you want. And then there's another side which is trying to conserve traditional religious Christian values and is really concerned about a moral slide into away from those sorts of values. So you have competing tensions going on.
Right,
Well,
you're thinking way too hard. You're
yeah,
thinking way too.
that was awkward. No, I'm just why is the church, especially the Catholic Church, dealing with what I would call pedophilia or what they've done? It's it's almost a double standard, where I
Right.
think some churches sweep things under the rug.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you deal with that? I mean,
Yeah, that's a classic
are,
story, Ray. And the story the sad story goes like this. And it's a story sadly told many, many, many times, which is my dad was a leader in the church, a deacon, an elder, whatever, a pastor,
Yep.
and he had an affair. And the church did call him down on that. And you shouldn't do that. But he's still a leader in the church. I came out and said, I'm gay. I'm not doing anything. I'm just came out of the closet. That's who I am. I'm not involved in any relationship. And they kicked me out of the church.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my dad's still a leader.
Yep.
And that double standard
Absolutely.
has created tremendous pain and hurt for thousands and thousands of people who have experienced something very similar to that story.
Well, guys, the whole concept is rampant. The double standard. You've got the guy that was the embezzler. Okay, well, he went to prison. He is now redeemed. He's restored. He can come back to the church. You've got the couple, heterosexual couple, but they're living together, and yep, come on in. You're welcome into church, et cetera, et cetera. And the list goes on. And you may even have somebody that they're a Democrat and they're allowed to come into the church. That's a joke, okay? That's a joke, okay? But you stop and think that one community, that one group of people is so set apart from everybody else. Why that one group versus all of the others? And we need to take another quick break. So, Bruce, while we're on this break, think about that. Make sure it's a really good answer, because it's got to be a taboo answer for us.
Yes, it is.
So, we're going to go to another real quick short video.
We all hope to age gracefully so we can enjoy our later years full of energy, vitality, and good health. But so often with age, our bodies start to show signs that things just aren't as they used to be. Our energy, skin, healing and recovery time, sleep, it all just seems to go downhill. Introducing LifeWave X39, the world's first product ever to activate stem cells, a true breakthrough in regenerative science that helps restore our bodies to a healthier, more youthful state in a way no other product can. No drugs, no injections, no kidding.
This is the most incredible product I have ever had. It's this little wafer thin patch. You just simply peel the backing off, put it on your body. In fact, it works within 3 inches of your body. So you can wear it on clothing, you can wear it directly on your skin, you can put it pretty much any place and it works. Doesn't really make any difference. It's going to help you with a lot of different things. It's going to help reverse the age, reduce your pain, give you better sleep, more energy, better focus. There are so many different benefits. It is the only product that I know of that genuinely, really scientifically proven reverses the aging process. So if anybody would like more information, they can reach out to me.
Well, it seems that Steve should be coming back.
I'm
I'm a
coming
little,
back. I'm coming back.
I'm a little confused.
Oh, we're
Says the
done with
Ray.
that. I'm just going
Yeah.
to bring Bruce back in, and we're going to keep talking. My mouse is
Access
very
granted.
sensitive. We'll just leave it at that way. My mouse is very sensitive, so it's not good for me to produce and talk at the same time. I should leave my hands tied behind my back or something. So anyway, all right. So where were we?
He was thinking of a good answer to your question.
I don't remember what my question was. I'm befuddled now.
That's all right. I think as we look at how churches treat LGBTQ people, what we realize is we're working at a deficit. And so it's not like it's at a neutral level. I had a friend of mine who said it's almost like if folks were a country, then it's like we bombed the country, and then we went in and said, "Hey, we'd like to tell you about the love of Jesus." And I go, "Wait a minute, you just bombed us." And so it's a group of
Yeah.
people who have been mistreated. We can't ignore the history. So I find that some Christians and some churches say, "Well, of course we love everybody. Of course we welcome everybody. Everyone should know that." But that is not the case. When you have to understand the history of what people have experienced, what their friends have experienced, and not ignore that. So if you genuinely want to welcome LGBTQ people to your church, you're going to have to go overboard to communicate that welcome, to overcome the negative history that people have experienced.
Yeah. All right. So I've got
Thank you very much.
related but unrelated question. So you've got an LGBTQ whatever couple that starts coming to the church, and one of them says, "I'd like to teach a Sunday school class." What do you do?
Yeah, I tell you, I'm just thrilled when a same-sex couple comes to our church, a lesbian couple or two guys, and to realize what do you think it took for them to walk in the door?
Yep.
They knew that there's a good chance they'd be rejected. They certainly weren't sure they'd be welcomed or accepted, and yet something compelled them to walk in the door.
Okay.
What is that? They're probably seeking God, seeking
Yep.
Christ, and willing to take a huge risk.
Yep.
So the first step for me, long before we get to a Sunday school class sort of a thing, is to embrace them, to welcome them, to signal, we're so glad you're here.
Sure.
And yet what I find in a lot of religious settings is that there's this sort of there's a standoffish posture. There's an awkwardness. There's a tenseness. Gosh, we said we want gay people at our church to hear about Jesus, but now someone's here and I don't know what to do and I'm uncomfortable and I don't know what to say. Well, all that gets communicated by our body language, our facial expressions, our hesitant words. So just the opposite is to throw your arms around someone and hug them, to have the biggest smile. And if it's genuine out of your own heart.
Right.
So I mean, literally, I want to, if it's socially appropriate, we aren't in the middle of a pandemic, to hug somebody.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing, is you welcome someone, you embrace them with joy and genuineness.
Mhm.
The second thing that you do is to listen. So it's not just like there's the LGBTQ issue. No, it's people. They're not an issue. They're not a
A
topic.
label.
Yeah.
They're people.
I understand.
And so what you want to do is hear someone's story. So the next thing I do is say, let's get together and have lunch. I want to hear your story. I want to know about you as a human being.
Right.
That kind of answers my question as far as if they come to a church and how you would respond to them. But how would you recommend a parent responds to their child when the child comes out to them? I mean,
Great question, Ray, and so important. So many parents, when their child comes out, they freak out. And then years later, parents have said, I so regret my initial response to my son, my daughter. I didn't respond well. I got angry. I got fearful. And now we've got to kind of, now how are we going to overcome all the negativity of my bad response? So how should you respond? Let me again take us to empathy. How long do you think your son or daughter thought about it before they came out to you?
Mhm.
What do you think went through their mind and their fears? Most kids we know from studies first perceive or become self-aware that they're gay at about 13, around puberty. And then most of them don't come out to their parents until years later, like 18, 20. So what all went on in those intervening years when they suffered alone without telling you as a mom or dad? And then imagine them getting ready to tell you, probably months, if not years of fear, anxiety, finally deciding to do it. And if you're a religious parent, a conservative parent, then they're scared. What are they scared of? My mom and dad's going to reject me. There are gay kids who have packed a suitcase before they had that coming out conversation. They have saved up money. They're wondering, will my mom or dad still pay for college?
Yeah.
Will I be able to live at home, or am I going to be homeless? I mean, will I be invited to family Thanksgiving, Christmas? And so they've probably talked to a couple of trusted friends and said, okay, I'm going to have it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. This is the day. And so your response should be empathetic.
Yep.
It should be, thank you for sharing with me. Thank you for trusting me enough to share this. This must have been so hard for you. And I'm sorry that you feel like you had to wait so long before you shared with me this incredibly personal and important information about yourself. And I just want you to know I'm so grateful that you've shared with me. And so it's affirming, honoring that your child, what you want to do is build trust. And what you want to do is signal that you love your child unconditionally. It doesn't matter who they are, what they do, what they call themselves. As their mom or their dad, you are going to love them unconditionally. And it's so important to send that signal. That doesn't mean you agree or approve or applaud whatever they're saying or doing, but love is not based on approval.
Yeah, that fits right in with the whole aspect of forgiveness.
Right.
Forgiveness is for the individual, not for the perpetrator. So, okay, so Bruce, let me ask you this: the term gay was you're going to hear my bias here, was hijacked about 40 years ago. And prior to that, the word gay, was just, fun loving and, effervescent and so forth. Well, that person really is gay. And there were a lot of songs back in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s that were talking about being a gay person. But today, that terminology has a very different connotation, and oh, I don't dare use that word. So here's a question then: can a man or woman be gay, lesbian, whatever, and still be a Christian?
Yeah, great question, Steve. And a lot of it trades on that word gay that you brought up that has changed meaning significantly over our last generation. And today is used in different ways, which create confusion and conflict.
Yep.
So the word gay is used 4 or 5 different ways. One way is, as Ray knows from bullying, is a boy will say to another boy, "You're so gay," or "That's so gay."
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that's a negative derisive term, which means you're being feminine, your voice, your dress. And so what that is talking about is a way of being masculine or feminine. And so the word gay can mean feminine. Now, is there anything wrong with a boy enjoying ballet? No. Or a girl enjoying boxing. And yet we have created cultural categories, caricatures of masculinity and femininity that are often reinforced in religious circles that don't allow for a broader picture of what it is to be a man or a woman. And that's a major problem in our society and in churches, just on that definition of gay. And there's several more I should share.
So some of the other challenges that we have. So what you're saying is that somebody that is living a gay lifestyle, whether they're engaging on a day-to-day basis or not, but that's they identify themselves as being gay, they can still be a Christian, just like somebody who is a pedophile. Can they be a Christian? Can a tax evader be a Christian? Can a a murderer be a Christian? Can it?
Yeah, if we stay on that track just for a minute, the word gay is also used a couple other ways. One is it means I'm engaging in sexual behavior with someone of my own sex.
Mhm.
That's kind of the way you're using it right now.
Yeah.
Another way, completely different, is I'm attracted to my own sex.
Okay.
I may or may not be engaged in any sexual behavior,
Okay.
but it is true about me that I am attracted romantically, erotically, from a personality way to my own sex. Now, your question, can a person be gay and be a Christian? And you went to various other horrible things like murder and so on,
Yep.
which I'm not so sure I would make parallel to
Understand.
engaging
That's
in
fair.
gay sexual behavior. However, let's ask it this way. Can a sinner be a Christian?
Better put. Yes.
I hope so. Otherwise,
If we're gonna have a long hot forever.
there are no, all the churches will be empty. There are no, there are no perfect people in churches. All of us are sinners. And that is an issue in this conversation, is that there's a sense of an us them. And the us is we stand on our high horse or up on our stool of righteousness
Yep.
and look down on those poor sinners, as opposed to realizing the ground is level at the foot of the cross, meaning we are all sinners.
Yep.
None of us is a holy, righteous person deserving of salvation. We're not
Yeah.
God.
Exactly.
And so I think there's a need for humility in the conversation and a need for a recognition. Jesus told a funny story out of his carpenter shop. He was originally a carpenter with his dad, a log and a splinter. And he said, we need to take the log out of our eye or the plank out of our eye before we look to take the splinter out of our neighbor's eye. And I think that applies in this conversation.
Yeah. That reminds me also of the illustration where the Pharisees brought the adulterous woman through her at Jesus' feet, and Jesus wrote whatever it was in the ground, and then they all just walked away. It says, who of you is without sin, cast the first stone. And then they walked away, and he says, where are your accusers?
And then after that, he said, does no one condemn you? Neither do I.
Exactly.
Now, how did he say that when she had committed adultery?
Right.
There was no, by the way, that was not under dispute, because it says in John 8 that she was caught in the act.
Yeah.
And yet he still said, neither do I condemn you.
Right. Well, I mean, he came for the sinners, not for the righteous, which none of us is righteous. So
he used the image of a doctor, and he said, a doctor is not coming for healthy people. A doctor is here to care for sick people.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Right. With that said, we need to take another real quick break. We're going to talk about our network. So bear with me for 1 second. So Ray, let's talk first of all your first impression when we were approached by Susan Hamilton, founder of OBBM Network, Offbeat Business Media Network. What was your first impression when we had that first conversation together?
Excitement. I mean, it's somebody recognizes our show, somebody recognizes what we're trying to put together, the message that we got, and for them to want us to be a part of their network, which is basically other programming that is for free thinking people that want to have a platform on free speech. So I was excited to learn more about it and get our feet wet on the ground and be a part of a larger network than what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah. When she first started talking to us and she listed off some of the different networks that she's affiliated with, right. I started to get pretty excited about that, because one of my goals, or one of my thoughts a year ago when we first got started with this, I thought to myself, it would be really cool to have a program on Rumble. That would be really cool. I wasn't that much into podcasts per se, but I like the Rumble format and some of the other video type formats. Yeah, that would be really cool. Man, I'd feel like I had made it if I had a program on Rumble. And guess
Well,
what?
we've made it.
We is there. So Ray, what kind of sound effect do you have for that? Do we have an applause thing? Or... Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So
Of course I have it.
anyway, folks, reach out, look up on Spotify, on iHeart, on Apple, on Rumble, several other of the podcast formats, and look up OBBM Network and subscribe to the network. And while you're at it, subscribe to Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. And we're here every Wednesday afternoon at 1:30 Central Time, and just kind of moving
And
our chops a little bit.
you want to check out a lot of their other shows or programming
Absolutely,
that they have on their network. It's
absolutely.
if
They've
you
got some
want,
really cool stuff.
yeah, if you want some other topics that are taboo that they bring up, we're in the process of speaking to some of the other um, bloggers or
Yep,
entertainers that are on their program to bring on our show
yep.
to
Vice
interview
versa.
them because they've got a lot of good content that we'd like to cover that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ray, let's bring Bruce back in, and we'll start to wrap things up. So, Bruce, when you look at the overwhelming issue of the rejection for the whole community, um, one of the things now I think in our conversations I do a lot of life coaching and executive coaching, marriage coaching, and one of the things that I have discovered, this is anecdotal, okay? I don't have any scientific proof behind this, but one of the things that I have come into with the vast majority of the people that are in that lifestyle, there's always an impetus or a start to it. And what I have discovered is there was some place in their childhood where there was some kind of rejection. Maybe there was some physical abuse along with it. Maybe dad left the home and in the process he beat his son and or daughter, whatever the case is. Or there was other abuse going on, and that child observes that and says, I don't want anything to do with that. What has your experience been? Do you find that that's a commonality?
It's really a mixed story, Steve, and it drives
Okay,
to the nature nurture debate, which
okay,
is, are you born gay or do you develop um, gay feelings along the way? And
okay,
of course, it's like most everything in life, a combination. But Christians often really resist the I'm
hmm,
born gay because it sounds like that it's not a moral choice. It's something you're born with. So how could you have any responsibility for it?
right,
However, I know, Steve, you would know from traditional classic Christian theology
yeah,
that the Bible teaches that all of us are born sinners, ironically.
yeah,
Original sin, it's called. And so,
yep,
wouldn't we expect that some people would be born with a tendency to same sex sexual behavior?
yeah,
Wouldn't that be consonant with our theology, which is that everyone is born into original sin? We don't have to teach children to to be selfish. We have to teach them to share.
yeah,
Anyone who's had a little child
exactly,
knows that. And
exactly.
so, actually, many people's story does not include abuse of any kind.
Hmm,
They have a loving family, but they said they discovered same sex desires that were unwelcome, unchosen. In fact, many people who grew up in a religious home prayed God would remove that. They felt ashamed. They
yep,
felt disgusted with themselves. And they have done everything under the sun, counseling, prayer, fasting, to try to get rid of those
right,
desires. And sometimes that's effective, most times not.
hmm,
And so then how do you live faithfully before God with those tendencies, those desires? Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes there's not some sort of abuse or some sort of difficulty in childhood or a hard experience, family of origin issues that didn't exacerbate
yeah,
what's going on there. Certainly that's a factor as well.
yeah. Yeah. I had one client several years ago that when he was about 11 years old, his uncle started to molest him, and that went on for several years, and I would say 2 to 3 years. And he started praying, God, just kill him, just kill him, just kill him.
Right.
I can't handle this anymore. And one day, this uncle had a heart attack.
Mm,
And guess what young Melvin did? He
sure.
started pulling the guilt and the shame on himself,
Right.
and then in the process that rewired his brain that that was acceptable behavior. And when he was 20, he became the molestor and not the molested.
Hmm.
And then as a result, and thankfully he was arrested and went to prison and so forth, but he still carried that shame. He
That's
dealt
right.
with the guilt part of things from what he did, but he never dealt with the shame part for what his uncle did to him, because he's pulling all of that stuff. And
That's what
so
I
he
just, yeah, I want to encourage people that God in Christ gives forgiveness
absolutely,
for all our guilt, all our
absolutely,
shame. He has amazing images that he removes it as far as the east is from the west,
yes,
washes this white as snow, and that you don't have to live in guilt and shame for the rest of your life.
yeah,
You
exactly.
really can embrace undeserved forgiveness that God offers us in Christ.
Yeah. And the interesting thing there, Bruce, is the initial part of my conversation with him was helping him to forgive his uncle,
Sure.
but then it very quickly morphed into him looking in the mirror and forgiving himself.
That's right.
And that was a tough process for him to go through. But thankfully, he moved in that direction. Now, how's he doing today? I don't know. I have no clue. Okay, I completely lost touch with him. But you're right. We hold on to those feelings, and we don't know how to deal with those things. And if the church does not step up to the plate and say we are a hospital for sinners, where are they going to go?
That's right. And so that's why I wrote the book, Leading a Church in a Time of Sexual Questioning,
Well,
to
speaking of
help churches, to
books,
help pastors, church leaders, to do just what you said. How can we really be a place where sinners of all kinds are welcome, starting with us and then all sorts of folks, but particularly, how can we extend a warm welcome to LGBTQ people? Jesus was accused of being a friend of quote unquote sinners. Oh, there it is. There's the title.
there you
That's
go.
on my. You can find it on Amazon or any place where books are sold, any retailer. But also you can go to my website brucebmiller.com and see that book. And I'm an author. I have like 10 books out there. So another question people ask a lot is about same-sex weddings. Should I attend? And so I've got a little short booklet to help answer that question.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I want to help churches to say, how do we be more like Jesus? Because sinners, quote unquote, in his day, prostitutes, tax collectors, were attracted to Jesus like a magnet. They wanted to have him to their house for dinner. He went to their parties, so much so that it offended the religious people of his day.
Yeah.
And they accused him of being a friend of sinners and a glutton and a drunkard because he ate and drank with people they didn't associate with.
Yeah.
Which I would say today, Jesus would be having dinner with LGBTQ people and being invited to their parties and having them over and eating and drinking with them.
Right.
And religious people would be very nervous about that, just like they were 2,000 years ago.
Well, and today, oftentimes, the same sort of thing. Well, many years ago, can you evangelize in a bar or in a strip club? Well, you can, but that's not really where you need to be to evangelize. So, I just heard a devotion this morning that was talking about a woman many years ago. She was praying fervently for 30 or 40 years that the strip club on the edge of town would be struck by lightning
Mm,
and would be demolished. And as the story goes, some of the other women in the church started befriending some of the girls that were working in the
yeah.
club. They had a change of heart. And then all of a sudden, the owner of the strip club had a change of heart and
Wow.
asked the church if they would be willing to buy his building because he didn't want to leave that legacy for his family. And
What a
all of a
great
sudden,
story.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So you have this major change all the way around. But as they wrapped up the story, they said, if a bolt of lightning had struck that strip club and burned it to the ground, the guy would have just gotten the insurance money, rebuilt, and just continued on. But this way, everybody had change of heart.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
folks, definitely check out Bruce's books. And I'm going to throw out something here also. If you are looking for a church home in the North Texas area, North Dallas area, McKinney, Plano, Prosper, Salina, etc., Frisco, you need to check out Christ Fellowship. Bruce, tell us a little bit about Christ Fellowship.
Yeah, Christ Fellowship is a church for everybody. We have a lot of diversity, ethnic diversity, age diversity, economic diversity. It's a non-denominational church, so it doesn't matter what your denominational background is and whether it's Christian or not. We have folks that are Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, and we are a Bible-based church, Christ-centered. So we believe the Bible is the Word of God. Christ is at the center, Spirit-empowered. With a church with a huge heart for our community and the world. So we're very involved in our community in helping people who are under-resourced of one kind or another. And at the center for us is Jesus Christ. We're about no other agenda, no other value even comes close. It's just about Jesus Christ and Him only. So we're very much centrist, not trying to be on any particular bandwagon or another other than Jesus Christ.
What would you say to gay people who are listening or watching this broadcast?
Yeah, I would, if you're in our area, I'd love for you to come to Christ Fellowship. Love to meet you personally. If you're anywhere near where I am, or if you're not, I'd love to engage with you. Feel free to email me, text me. I'd love to connect with you and be any encouragement I could be, whatever you're going through, whatever experiences you've had. If you've had bad experiences with a church and have some hurt there, my heart just goes out to you. I'm sorry. I just apologize on behalf of Christians and churches for any way you've been mistreated. That grieves me. It angers me. And any way I could be an encouragement to you, I would be delighted to be.
Yeah. Bruce, you say that. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but there are a lot of churches that throw their sinners to the wolves.
Right.
I just heard a good friend of mine. He was recently diagnosed as being bipolar, and the church basically said, "We don't want you around here."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why? But yet his wife decided she was going to divorce him because he just discovered that he was bipolar, and the church has embraced her. And I'm thinking, we got a messed up way of thinking.
That's right.
With all of this. Yeah. And so we've got to be open and understand and recognize that the church really is for everyone. So I've got a lot more questions, but unfortunately, Bruce, we are flat out of time.
And
so
if someone's a pastor or a church leader, or you're on some church board of one kind or another, I'm also happy to meet with folks. I do a free phone call, and then I do some consulting, whether we do that by Zoom or whether I come and visit your place. Happy to be a support or help to any church out there.
And you do some webinars and seminars on this whole issue as well.
Yeah, on my website, there's a free webinar and there's a course based on my book. If you prefer video, you can purchase that course.
That is excellent. I love that. Thank you very much for being there and for being open-minded in the whole thing. But really, I think one of the biggest things that I'm sensing is your obedience to what you believe God's word is telling you. So that's pretty significant. So,
thanks, Stephen Ray. Thanks for having me on the show, and I appreciate your willingness, guys, to address taboo topics.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Ray, any closing comments?
Well, as always, visit us on Facebook, YouTube. Check out the OBBM network. Look them up. Follow us on their programming as well. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like us to talk about, let us know on our Facebook chat. Feel free to leave any comments, and Steve and I or all of our guests will always be happy to comment and share our opinions, as we always do. Thank you for watching.
Like, share, comment, subscribe. Folks, we will see you next week for another exciting episode of Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. You're a mess. See you next time.